So negative numbers. Something that confuses a lot of people, especially when you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, all that fun stuff. I'm gonna go over that right now, and hopefully this video will help you conceptualize and understand really what's going on when you are doing those operations, so you don't get them confused and then that messes you up and you get a terrible grade or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to start with a number line, something everyone at some point has seen. If you haven't, awesome. I'm going to run over it real quick. So we're going to do really small numbers, because if we did bigger ones, you would get caught up in all the calculations that you have to do and all that stuff, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to have you calculate things. I'm trying to have you learn here. So the number line has both negative and positive real numbers. You could have square root 2, square root 3, negative square root 2, negative square root 69. It doesn't matter. It is going to have every single number. But right now, this is just going to be a number line with integers on it, both positive and negative. We're not going to be doing any decimal places or anything like that. So the idea of the number line is, let's say you have a very simple math problem. 1 plus 1, real simple stuff. Then just, this is not equal to window. It is equal to some real number. Now, to use a number line, we're going to say, okay, first number, that's 1. We're going to start and we're going to increase it or go further right by 1. Therefore, getting us the answer of 2. Now, when you subtract a number from another, you are going to say, okay, well, our first number is again 1. We're going to take away that 1. That will take us in the opposite direction. So, something that is some difference, 1 minus 1 in this example, is going to take us further away from whatever point we were on the positive side. It can also be on the negative, but you're just going to go further left if you subtract something, and if you add something in certain cases, it is going to take you further right. Think negative, right, left, positive, right. Very simple stuff. Okay. Now, we're going to kind of start abstracting things, so this kind of whole concept of the number line is going to start making sense. I'm going to start using areas, because areas are easier to think about than this. While great, this doesn't get your the problem-solving part of your brain to really start, working. We have 1 square. Let's say this area is 1 by 1. So it is 1 squared. And you have a second square. Also, the area is 1, or 1 squared. Well, if you subtract a given area in a set 2D space, you're going to have no area in that space, because you are subtracting area. An area takes up space, so if you subtract or take away the space that it occupies, it no longer occupies any space. So you would have nothing. You would have no space occupied. Now, you have 1 square, and you're subtracting one square, and then another square. So you're subtracting more area than you currently have. I just need you to think about this for a second. You know that subtracting some number by another is going to take you further left. Now, just pause and think about this for a second. Okay. Well, now that you paused, thought about it for a second, at least I hope you did. If not, just follow along. We'll get through this. So, you're subtracting an area by a larger area. So, you're obviously going to have no area now. It's just going to be an empty space. There's nothing occupied there. It's just a blank set of the board. There's nothing. But then you're subtracting something else. And when you subtract something past zero, you get into negative numbers. So you would actually end up having negative area. Not the same size, but I think you get the idea. It's negative area. So now there is area again, but it doesn't really exist. So your area has gone further left than zero. And zero means nothing, of course. And if you go further left, you're going to start getting more and more negative area, or a larger and larger negative number, making it smaller because we think in terms of zero. The closer something is to zero, the bigger it is when it's negative. Whereas positive, further away, bigger it is. Now, we're going to keep this same idea. And we're going to say this is, we have the result, our answer, -1. We have negative area now. Well, I'm going to subtract a negative area. Now, really think about this one, because this one's a little, for most, is quite tricky. So, hopefully you pause. We're going to get through this now. You have the negative area, but you're subtracting another negative area. Most of you may already know this. 2 negatives make a positive, but I'm not worried about that aspect. I'm trying to have you think in terms of area instead of signs, where that would be helpful in a lot of scenarios. It is important to think about that. Oh, there's 2 negatives, it negates. This is just me kind of leading you through it, so it starts to make a little more sense. Now, you're subtracting a negative area from a negative area. Well, if you're subtracting an area that doesn't exist from a more negative area, you're just going to get nothing. Because you're subtracting something. It's similar to this. You are subtracting something that exists from the same size area, and now you get nothing. Whereas you're subtracting, you have a negative area, you're subtracting another negative area, therefore giving you, again, nothing. Because you're taking away that negative area. You're just saying, oh, I don't like that negative area is there, so I'm just going to take it away. And now it doesn't exist anymore. To think about this fairly simply, you have some negative number, let's call this n sub 1, when it is less than some other negative number, m sub 2, you get a result of m sub 3, which is a positive number. If and only if you are subtracting n1, which is a negative number, from n2, which is a negative number. If you're adding, that's a completely different story because you will go more negative because you're adding negative space instead of taking away your negative space. And when it comes to multiplication, the same idea kind of applies. You're multiplying a negative space by another negative space, therefore canceling out the fact that it is negative and then making it a positive number. And the same idea also applies to multiplying a negative number by a positive number. You get a negative number because you're taking that positive number and multiplying the negative space. So making the negative space bigger. And of course, when you're multiplying two positive numbers, you get a really big negative space. And hopefully this made sense to you, and hopefully this abstraction also helped you think about it as well. Inequalities can help you think about the process of determining whether it's going to be more positive, more negative, or just it doesn't exist anymore because you're subtracting a negative number from another negative number and they both have the same area, or they're both of the same magnitude, aka further away from zero, where absolute value of n is just equal to n. This is just talking about its magnitude, its distance from zero. If this was -5, this should just say, oh, it's 5 steps away from zero. And if it was positive, it's still 5 steps away from zero. Hopefully this was helpful and not at all confusing. If it was, just like the video, leave a rash comment and tell me I'm smelling a terrible teacher. Or if this was helpful, go ahead and leave a like. Ask me some question or to clarify something for you. I'm glad to do it. I have nothing but time on my hands after I've had a child. Okay, so hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. And have a great day. Remember, guys, practice makes progress. Not perfect.